Thank you all for attending, Vaishnavas. Hopefully I can relay something of worthwhile. It's all due to the mercy of Sri Guru and Gauranga, and also all of you. Thank you. So, like I said, we'll be starting on chapter 8, text 18. We'll be reading the Sanskrit and then the translation. So text 18. Avyaktad vyaktaya sarva prabhavantyahar agame ratragame paliyante tatraiva vyakta samgyake. Translation. When Brahma's day is manifest, this multitude of living entities comes into being, and at the arrival of Brahma's night, they are all annihilated. Text 19. Bhuta gramha saivayam bhutva bhutva praliyate ratragame vashaparta prabhavatyahar agame. Again and again the day comes, and this host of beings is active, and again the night falls, O Partha, and they are helplessly dissolved. Text 20. Parastasmat tu bhavo nyo vyakto vyaktat sanatanaha yasa sarveshu bhuteshu nashyatsu na vinashyati. Translation. Yet there is another nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. Text 21. Avyakto kshara ityuktas tam ahu paramam gatim yam prapya na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. Translation. That supreme abode is called unmanifested and infallible, and it is the supreme destination. When one goes there, he never comes back. That is my supreme abode. Text 22. Purusha saparaparta bhaktya labhyastvananyaya yasyanta stani bhutani yena sarvamidam tatam. Translation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated within him. Text 23. Yatra kale tvanavrittim avrittim chaiva yoginaha prayatayantikta kalam vakshyami bharatarshava. Translation. O best of the Bharatas, I shall now explain to you the different times at which, passing away from this world, one does or does not come back. Text 24. Agnir joitir aha shukla shanmasa uttarayanam tatra prayata gachanti brahma vido janaha. Translation. Those who know the Supreme Brahman pass away from the world during the influence of the fiery god, in the light, at an auspicious moment, during the fortnight of the moon, in the 6 months when the sun travels in the north. Text 25. Dhumo ratristata Krishna shanmasa dakshinayanam tatra chandra masam joitir yogi prapya vidvartate. Translation. The mystic who passes away from this world during the smoke, the night, the moonless fortnight, or in the 6 months when the sun passes to the south, or who reaches the moon planet, again comes back. Text 26. Shukla Krishne gati yeta jagata shashvate mate ekaya yana vrittim anya yavartate punaha. Translation. According to the Vedas, there are 2 ways of passing from this world, one in light and one in darkness. When one passes in light, he does not come back, but when one passes in darkness, he returns. 27. Naite Stri Parthajanan Yogi Muyati Kashchana Tasmat Sarveshu Kaleshu Yoga Yukto Bhavarjuna. Translation. The devotees who know these two true paths, O Arjuna, are never bewildered. Therefore, be always fixed in devotion. Text 28. Vedeshu yagyeshu tapas chaiva daneshu yat punya. Vedeshu yagyeshu tapasu chaiva daneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam agyeti tat sarvamidam vidvitva yogi param stanam upaiti chadyam. Translation. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. At the end, he reaches the supreme abode. So we'll go back to text 18. When Brahma's day is manifest and this multitude of living entities comes into being, and at the arrival of Brahma's night, they are all annihilated. Purport and translations also by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The less intelligent jivas try to remain within this world and are accordingly elevated and degraded in the various planetary systems. During the daytime of Brahma, they exhibit their activities, and at the coming of Brahma's night, they are annihilated. In the day, they receive various bodies for material activities, and at the night, these bodies perish. The jivas, individual souls, remain compact in the body of Vishnu, and again are manifest at the arrival of Brahma's day. When Brahma's life is finally finished, they are all annihilated and remain unmanifest for millions and millions of years. Finally, when Brahma is born again in another millennium, they are again manifest. In this way, the jivas are captivated by the material world. However, those intelligent beings who take to Krishna consciousness and chant Hare Krishna, Hare Rama in devotional service transfer themselves, even in this life, to the spiritual planet of Krishna and become eternally blissful there, not being subject to such rebirths. So like Dhruva Maharaj, we can meditate on the Lord and try to go to the Lord's supreme abode, even in this life. Or similarly, like the Brahmin who didn't have the resources to offer opulent offerings to Krishna, decided to do it in his mind. And by doing that for so long and with such sincerity and enthusiasm, he was eventually taken. Krishna noticed him. He was eventually taken to the spiritual world. So hearing these instances, we can have faith that we can also achieve that, like Srila Prabhupada is saying, even in this life. Text 19. Yes. Again and again the day comes and this toast of beings is active, and again the night falls, O Partha, and they are hopelessly dissolved. 20. Yet there's another nature which is eternal and is transcendental to this manifested and unmanifested matter. It is supreme and is never annihilated. When all in this world is annihilated, that part remains as it is. Purport. Krishna's superior spiritual energy is transcendental and eternal. It is beyond all the changes of material nature, which is manifest and annihilated during the days and nights of Brahma. Krishna's superior energy is completely opposite in quality to material nature. Superior and inferior nature are explained in the 7th chapter. So there's a difference between Krishna's energy. We're part of the superior energy, and all the inert matter we see around us, and even the way in which we see is inferior energy. But one who has this knowledge, they can mayam etam tarantite, they can easily cross over this ocean of material misery. And in fact, Krishna is so kind that he makes this ocean the size of the hoof of a calf. So just like that, it's so easy to step over the little imprint made by a calf. Krishna makes it that way for us if we cultivate this knowledge, Krishna consciousness, and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Text 21. That supreme abode is called unmanifested and infallible, and it is the supreme destination. When one goes there, he never comes back. That is my supreme abode. The supreme abode of the purport, the supreme abode of the personality of Godhead, Krishna, is described in the Brahma Samhita as Chintanami Dham, a place where all desires are fulfilled. The supreme abode of Lord Krishna, known as Goloka Vrindavan, is full of palaces made of touchstone. There are also trees which are called desire trees that supply any type of eatable upon demand, and there are cows known as Surabhi cows, which supply a limitless supply of milk. In this abode, the Lord is served by hundreds and thousands of goddesses of fortune, Lakshmis, and he is called Govinda, the primal Lord and the cause of all causes. The Lord is accustomed to blow his flute, Venum Kwanantam. His transcendental form is the most attractive in all the worlds. His eyes are like the lotus petals, and the color of his body like clouds. He is so attractive that his beauty excels that of thousands of cupids. He wears saffron cloth, a garland around his neck, and a peacock feather in his hair. In the Gita, Lord Krishna gives only a small hint of his personal abode, Goloka Vrindavan, which is the supermost planet in the spiritual kingdom. A vivid description is given in the Brahma Samhita. Vedic literature states that there is nothing superior to the abode of the Supreme Godhead, and that abode is the ultimate destination. When one attains to it, he never returns to the material world. Krishna's supreme abode and Krishna himself are non-different, being the same quality. On this earth, Vrindavan, 90 miles southeast of Delhi, is a replica of that supreme Goloka Vrindavan located in the spiritual sky. When Krishna descended on this earth, he sported in this particular tract of land known as Vrindavan in the district of Mathura, India. So we find here in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is summarizing some scripture found in the Brahma Samhita describing what Goloka Vrindavan is like, what our destination is if we are sincere and enthusiastic in our service, in our training to enter into Goloka Vrindavan. We get a little understanding of what that is. Of course, it's limitless. Goloka Vrindavan is limitless. It's ever expanding. Text 22. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is greater than all, is attainable by unalloyed devotion. Although he is present in his abode, he is all-pervading, and everything is situated within him. Purusha sa parapartha, bhaktya labhyastvananyaya. Ananyaya in this verse means unalloyed, undeviating devotion. We also find in chapter 9, text 22, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam. And it's saying, let's just go to it and read it. But those who worship me with devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them I carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Ananyas Chintayanto Mam. Ananya, no other Chintayanto, concentrating Mam. No other way of concentrating except on Krishna. So undeviating devotion, we find that as pure devotional service, Haitukya Pratihata, unmotivated and uninterrupted. So that's the kind of devotional service the Gita is propagating. And it's what we're trying to cultivate here at Rupanuga Vedic College. And also trying to teach nothing less than pure devotional service. Of course, we're all at different levels, and the more we practice devotional service, the more we understand what level we're at and how much more we go, and how much more we have to go, and how much really in need we are of the Lord's mercy to get there. Seeing how fallen we are. This morning, Magadari Prabhu was talking about the songs of the Acharyas and how they express this mood of being like the worm and stool, the lowest of the low. And I was thinking about that, and I was like, that they have that mood, and they recognize more than we do how much mercy we actually need from the Lord to progress in spiritual life, and how much covered we are, how many millions and millions of lives we've gone through, as we read in the earlier text in this chapter. How we go into the body of Mahavishnu during Brahma's night, and again we come out. And in between those times we're unmanifested, we're millions of lives were in the body of Vishnu and Mahavishnu, and then we're exhaled along with Lord Brahma, and he creates everything for us to inhabit these bodies. And how many millions and millions of years were in this. I mean, we can just think of this one rotation of Satya Yuga, Dwapar Yuga, Treta Yuga, and then Kali Yuga. How many rotations of those we've gone? And we can just meditate on the current rotation and how many millions of births we've been through. We went through all of Satya Yuga and we didn't get out. That was, we were in some sort of body during that time where meditation was the way of achieving perfection, but we didn't make it. So now we're here in Kali Yuga, and fortunately Lord Chaitanya's appeared, and of course he's giving us the same nectar instructions as Krishna is giving us in Bhagavad-gita, to chant the holy names of Krishna and serve the devotees and serve Guru. So I'll read some of the purport here. It is here clearly stated that the supreme destination from which there is no return is the abode of Krishna, the Supreme Person. The Brahma Samhita describes the supreme abode as Ananda Chinmaya Rasa, a place where everything is full of spiritual bliss. So in the Brahma Samhita, that verse is Ananda Chinmaya Rasa Pratibhavitabhis Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Taya Kalabhihi Goloka Eva Nivasatya Kilatma Bhuto Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami. So this translation by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is, I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, residing in his own realm, Goloka, with Radha, resembling his own spiritual figure, the embodiment of the ecstatic potency possessed of the 64 artistic activities in the company of her confidants, Sakhis, embodiments of the extensions of her bodily form, permeated and vitalized by his ever blissful spiritual ras. So that's that spiritual bliss Srila Prabhupada is discussing, is those relationships that mellow that were awarded. Of course, we want pure devotional service, and Krishna is going to uncover our relationship that we have with him, our eternal form, our swarup that we all have. We all have an identity that is beyond these material coverings. So this relationship, this between Krishna is the absolute, and Srimati Radharani is the eternal potency of Krishna. So they have this relationship, and there's love between them. And in the purport here by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, it's described as an amorous love, one that is inconceivable. So I won't talk on it, but it's inconceivable. And they share this ras together. There's a foundation for it, and then there's the expression of it. So we can see that in our personal dealings, that there is two persons reciprocating. So in the same way, in a similar way, I guess I should say, it's perverted here because of the modes of material nature. But in the same way, Radha and Krishna are having that interchange in the spiritual world. And all the Sakis, as we understand from this text, are helping to arrange that. So this is the spiritual world. It has this Nija Paraptaya. Nija Rupataya, or the 64 arts. Has anybody heard of the 64 arts? Yeah. These 64 arts are activities that are present in the spiritual world. The first and foremost art is Gita. Anybody know what Gita means? Song. Very good. So Gita, we practice every day. We're singing the Lord's glories every single day. We're dancing, and then we're playing musical instruments, nritya, bhaja. So those are the top three of the 64 arts mentioned. Can anybody recall a line from a song that describes these three that we sing every day? Kirtana nirta gita varitra madhyan manasura sena romancha kampa shutarango bhajo vande guru shri charanara vindam. So every day we sing that. The Guru Vastakam. It's the first song we sing. The first song we sing at Mangal Arti, and we sing. It's the Guru is engaging us in these activities through Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is teaching us to do this, but the Guru is engaging us through the Guru to chant or sing, to dance, and to play musical instruments. And we also sing about the same thing in the evening too. Shanka Bhaje Ganta Bhaje Madhur 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 Bhaje. So we're chanting, and we're, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving us this vision, his spiritual vision. He's giving it to us through his song to not imagine, but to visualize. These disciples of Lord Chaitanya are there, fanning him with the chamara, holding an umbrella for him. And then Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva are there. And they're all worshiping Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. We can kind of understand this like the Panchatattva in a way, in the painting that is quite popular. The Panchatattva is standing there. It's behind it somewhere. Anyway, these songs remind us of these 64 arts that are present in the spiritual world. So we're practicing those things so we can actually train ourselves up to enter the spiritual world. Even though we have so many anartas, we have to work through those. We have to train ourselves up so we can slowly advance in spiritual life and purify ourselves. Anandam Buddhivardhanam Pratipa. Anyway, it's the first verse in the Shikshastakam prayers by Lord Chaitanya. Talks about how we have to clean the dust from the mirror of the heart. And so we're doing that by chanting the Maha Mantra, but also during the morning and evening program, we're purifying ourselves. Because instead of thinking about mundane things, we can meditate on this arti ceremony. We're having an arti ceremony, and then we're also singing about an arti ceremony. It's kind of cool. An arti within an arti. So there's other, some of the other arts that are mentioned that are practiced in the spiritual world, but it's not even in the spiritual world. It's also in Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, it's going on right now. Srila Jiva Goswami explains that, I was reading about this in the Brahma Samhita. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is explaining that Srila Jiva Goswami is establishing the fact that Goloka Vrindavan, which is a spiritual world, and then Gokul, which is the reality of the material world, or Vrindavan, or Krishna's pastimes on the material level. But it's being executed by Yoga Maya, which is the internal energy of the Lord, which is non-different from the Lord. So these pastimes that are taking place in the spiritual world are also, in fact, taking place in Vrindavan, which might seem to some as being mundane, but actually it is not. But it depends on the realization of the person involved. So it's in the eye of the beholder and the level of realization that the person has, if they're going to be able to have a vision, given the eyes, this Premanjana Charito Bhakti Vilochanena, they have to be anointed with the pulp of love by the mercy of Krishna to be able to see these pastimes. So some of the other arts that I like to take note of that seemed interesting to me was Aindra Jala, the art of jugglery. Takshana, the art of carpentry. So we can think about these different type of activities that we can do here and how those can actually be engaged in the spiritual world also. So it can enhance our meditation on our own activities. Vastu Vidya, the art of engineering. So many devotees are engaged in engineering temples in the temple in Mayapur. I mean, it's massive, the temple of Vedic planetarium. So many engineers needed to make sure that big dome didn't cave in on itself, right? Right. Prabhupada wanted that dome. He was in the Washington, D.C., and he pointed to the capital city dome. And he was like, I want that. I want that dome. And so now the devotees are executing it to a more grand scale because we don't want less for the Lord. We want more. And it's such a nice preaching opportunity too for others to understand how this material universe is acting. Another art is Vriksha, your Veda Yoga, the art of practicing medicine or medical treatment by herbs. So even those who are healing people, that's going on in the spiritual world too. And then Samvachya, Bach, Bacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Uttarapasta Vegam. So yeah, art of conversation. So how, we Bach, we got to learn how to converse as if we're in the spiritual world, nicely with devotees. Of course, over time we'll become purified and we'll achieve that. Okay. I'll read the rest of the purport here. Whatever variegatedness is manifest, there is also of this the quality of spiritual bliss. There's nothing material. All variegatedness is expanded as the spiritual expansion of the Supreme Godhead Himself. For the manifestation there is totally of the spiritual energy, as explained in chapter 7. As far as this material world is concerned, although the Lord is always in His supreme abode, He is nonetheless all-pervading by His material energy. So by His spiritual and material energies, He is present everywhere, both in the material and in the spiritual universes. Yasyanta stani means that everything is sustained by Him, whether it is spiritual or material energy. It is clearly stated here that only by bhakti or devotional service can one enter into the Vaikuntha spiritual planetary system. In all the Vaikunthas, there is only one Supreme Godhead, Krishna, who has expanded Himself into millions and millions of planetary expansions. These planetary expansions are four-armed, and they preside over the innumerable spiritual planets. They are known by a variety of names: Purushottama, Trivikrama, Keshava, Madhava, Aniruddha, Hirshikesha, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Sridhar, Vasudev, Damodar, Janardhan, Narayan, Vamana, Padmanabh, and so on. These planetary expansions are likened unto the leaves of a tree, and the main tree is likened to Krishna. Krishna, dwelling in Goloka Vrindavan, His supreme abode, systematically conducts all affairs of both universes, material and spiritual, without a flaw, by power of His all-pervasiveness. So He's attainable by unalloyed devotion. So we learn in the Bhagavad-gita, and we also read about it in Srimad Bhagavatam, how we have to somehow or other in our lives come to this level of unalloyed devotional service to attain Krishna. Only wanting to serve Krishna, no matter what activity we do, we just want to serve Krishna. So I made a few notes on these nice names that we are reading here. So this month happens to be Purushottama Mas. It's a special month with increased blessings for the spiritual activities that we do. So we should, we can try to take full advantage of that by doing maybe something a little extra. I mean, we live in the temple, or we live in the temple property, a lot of us here, but there's always something more that we can do. We can push ourselves a little bit. And, tomorrow's Ekadashi. So wow, what auspicious Ekadashi to be in Purushottama month. And it's also Ekadashi. So we can even engage more and more in spiritual activities, maybe put something aside or not put something aside, but dive deeper and concentrate more in our studies and in our chanting, and really, maybe before we start the chanting in the morning, we can say a little prayer to Krishna to help us engage our minds more and more in Krishna while we becoming more and more absorbed in chanting His holy names. Just taking a moment, even before we chant, to do that can help our minds come to a place where, okay, this is the activity I'm doing right now. So Purushottama, the Supreme Person, that's what that means. It's also the title of the 15th chapter of the Bhagavad-gita, Purushottama Yoga, or the Yoga of the Supreme Person. Trivikrama, So we say this one when we're applying T-lock on our right shoulder. Om Trivikramaya Namaha. So we can remember Trivikrama, or another name for that is Vamana, or Lord Vamanadev. So in September, we'll celebrate the appearance day of Lord Vamanadev. And Trivikrama, tree, three, means the Lord who takes 3 steps. So when he took 3 steps, he took so large steps that his toe poked through the material covering of earth, water, fire, air, sky, the total material energy and false ego. Those are the coverings of the material world. But his toe poked through those, and from that came the water of the Ganga, from the spiritual world, if I'm not mistaken. Keshava means beautiful long hair, and also killer of the Keshu demon. So we can read about Lord Keshava in those pastimes in the Krishna book, also Srimad Bhagavatam. Now he punched Keshava right in the mouth, the horse demon, which was huge. The horse demon is huge, like towered over the trees. That's how it's described. I mean, then of course you have like Putana, who is like 80 miles long or something like that. There's pictures of it. I can just imagine that all the farmers like, man, what's this witch doing here? She's like she covered all my land. What am I supposed to do? And, they're chopping her up and burning her. And there's like super fragrant, smelliness going on in the air. Then the last one I took note of was Madhava. So Madhava is the husband of the goddess of fortune, or Sri Madhava. And Srila Prabhupada mentions Madhava's two different words, Madhu and Vana. Sorry, Madhu and Dava. Madhu means sweet, and Dava means the whole world. So Krishna is able to give the whole world sweetness, and he actually named the deities in Mayapur Sri Madhava. Sri Madhava, can't remember. Yeah. Yeah. So that's all I have for today. Is there any questions, comments, corrections? Radha Stalin, you had your hand up first.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for sharing such nice reflections on Bhagavad-gita. I liked how you spoke about, let's see, we should use this art of conversation like we're in the spiritual world. So speak with others in such a way that's beneficial. And I just like that. It reminded me of a lecture that we attended by Varshana Maharaj. And he was telling us that these relationships we have, especially amongst devotees, are special because it's a way for us to practice how to have relationships in the spiritual world. So we could have these same relationships in the spiritual world amongst the devotees that we're having now. I thought that was really nice, and you reminded me of that by sharing that. Also, I just thought it was interesting in Prabhupada's purport for verse 18. He's talking about how Brahma, we're manifest when Brahma is awake. Sorry, I forget.
The day of Brahma. Yeah.
When his day is manifest, then we all become manifest also. But then when he's annihilated, we are also annihilated. And Prabhupada says that for millions and millions of years, those who are annihilated at the same time, they remain unmanifest for millions and millions of years. So I just thought that was interesting. I don't want to just sit unmanifest. I don't really understand what that means. It sounds like, we're just, bleh, just sitting there. Yeah, I want to go back to the spiritual world. So thanks for helping me by allowing me to hear about Krishna. Prabhu.
Jaya Prabhupada. Yeah, the relationships we have are so important. I mean, those we see around us, they might be at our deathbed chanting, So that's something to think about too. Thank you for your comments. Krishnendu.
One point, oh Krishna, this is law. At one point, you mentioned this shloka about how Krishna makes this material ocean the size of a hoof's calf print. A calf's hoof print. Sorry. Yeah, I was following Srila Prabhupada, and there's a devotee in there. I forget who, and they were having some problems, in devotional life or in the temple or whatever it was, and they wanted to go see Srila Prabhupada to get his advice to have him straighten things out. And then they explained how they're all worked up about this giant problem. It's such a big deal. And then they go sit in front of Prabhupada, and just like being in Prabhupada's presence, just like looking at him, it's like, wow, my problem that I'm so frustrated about is so tiny. It's not even meaningful to bring up to him to waste his time. And then they compared it, that feeling that they experienced, to that same shloka. Because when we're with the spiritual master, somebody who's much more self-realized than us, then immediately our little problems, we could see how small they are in a grander scale of, what's really going on. So I just wanted to mention that.
Thank you. Yeah. These advanced devotees, these spiritual masters, Srila Prabhupada, your spiritual master, His Holiness Dhanava Goswami, they're creating tirthas or holy places wherever they go. And those are sacred places, those are like Vaikuntha. Vaikuntha means no anxiety. So in that little atmosphere, if we're allowed entrance into it, then we can also experience the lack of anxiety, the no anxiety that's there. I've had personal experience with this, and find it also to be true. Some problem that seems so huge, but like Prabhupada says, what's the difficulty? Why be disturbed? These things that, it immediately brings us back to the knowledge that we're not our bodies, and this is just temporary. It's real, but it's temporary. But of course, we have to work out what's going on. But if we're able to have that, we can step back, then we can be more sober about what the next step is to take, rather than acting irrationally. Yeah, thank you for your comments, Prabhu. Jagannath, you had something too?
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I was just wondering this point right here about why should one endeavor to clean his heart?
Yeah, I mean, when we have to recognize how dirty it is, and the more we chant Hare Krishna, the more we're going to recognize that, and to not endeavor is to be in the mode of ignorance, not knowing what's going on. But once we have this knowledge that we're spirit soul and that we're just in this flesh bag, this covering of the three modes of material nature, then we'll understand, okay, we're in a very precarious situation here. we could leave our bodies at any moment and not attain our goal, pure devotional service. We all have to eventually come up with that main reason that we are endeavoring to clean our heart. We have to come up with that motivation. No one can tell us, here's why. We all have to have that motivation in our heart that we keep with us. Of course, we can't do it on our own. We hear in the Gita, Tadvidi Pranipatina Pariprashnena Sevya Upadekshanti Te Gyanam Gyaninas Tatvadarshinaha, that we just have to try to approach a spiritual master and render service to him. And he'll impart knowledge to us because he has seen the truth. So we have to try, we have to endeavor. Of course, in this process, there's no loss or diminution. And so little by little, we're going to get there. But, we can have a little bit of anxiety that we're not there, but we need to try more and more. So I don't know if anybody else has a little bit to share on that. Radhastali, you can share why clean our heart.
My comment is short. I remember I asked this question in a class here one day, and Maharaj answered. My question was, why should one strive to become pure? And cleaning, to me, like cleaning the heart is to become pure. But his answer was that we're in an unnatural state. Our natural state is to be pure, is to be Satchit Ananda. But because we're in an unnatural state, we should want to go back to our natural state. So that's all I have to add to that.
Thank you. That's really nice. Okay, I think we'll end there, dear devotees. Thank you for tolerating me. Do you have something, Prabhu? One last thing?
Srila Prabhupada say that there's a difference between Goloka Vrindavan and Gokula Vrindavan, and in performing the devotional service in this material world, sometimes there are difficulties, but when you return to the kingdom of God in the spiritual world at Vaikuntha, there are no difficulties in performing devotional service. In the abode of Krishna, there are Kalpaviksha trees. The desire trees fulfill all of the desires of the devotee. And when Srila Prabhupada was performing his devotional service, we could read from Prabhupada Lilamrita how many difficulties Prabhupada had to tolerate: heart attacks, diabetes. When he was in New York City, someone broke into his room and stole his stuff. And he was attacked by so many Mayavadis during his patient career. But in the kingdom of God, all the living entities are eternal, blissful, and full of knowledge. They're fully conscious, and the trees can move from one place to another. In this world, the trees are immovable. And in Goloka Vrindavan, all speech is song. The water is just like nectar. Walking is like dancing. And the constant companion is Krishna's flute. Thank you.
Thank you. Back home, back to Godhead. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srimad Bhagavad-gita ki jai, Vanchakalpa Trivyascha Kripa Sindhuveva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo